Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing another one of the move updates from the Season 21 Balance Patch, and this is a Pokemon that actually received multiple buffs, and that is Hypno. Now, Hypno has access to all 3 elemental punches, meaning technically it was buffed quite a bit. Now, Hypno used to be an OG meta staple back in the day, but has since fallen out of grace. So the question I'm looking to answer today is, with these buffs to the elemental punches, at long last, is Hypno finally back? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Shadow Hypno in action in the Open Grade League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Shadow Hypno versus a Sand Attack Gliscor. Gliscor is going to switch out and make a nice catch onto Dunsparce. Dunsparce, of course, going to be able to absorb this Ice Punch damage, no problem. My goal here now is just to stay in with the Hypno, wait for them to throw some energy, and this way I can bank an Ice Punch for later, and now very safely send in Greninja. For Greninja, my goal is going to be a 1 shield and a massive overfarm. I want to try and exit with as much energy as I possibly can. These Water Shurikens are adding up. This might be a little bit greedy, but I'm hoping a Night Slash can KO. Greninja has a very high attack stat. It does KO, and that is massive. Now I have more residual energy than if I ended up going for a Hydro Cannon. Back in comes the Gliscor. Gliscor will typically run Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is going to do some pretty significant damage. I go for the Night Slash. Opponent is going to switch out, preserving the Gliscor and catching onto Bibarel. Bibarel now going to be answered with the Shadow Drapion. They did sneak a rollout when they caught, so they are able to outpace. They go for the Hyper Fang, and that does massive damage. Farming up a ton with the Drapion, looking to pick up a knockout or grab a shield with the Crunch. Opponent is going to let it go, and now they bring back in Gliscor. Gliscor has to shield up the Aqua Tail. Switch Clock not yet up, so I will get farmed down, but this is where all the stored energy on the Hypno will be extremely clutch, because I am now only 1 confusion off back-to-back Ice Punches. Ice Punch number 1 gets the shield. Opponent is very close to 2 moves. If they're there, I need to switch. I say they aren't. I go for the Ice Punch, and they were just shy of making it to their next move. Ice Punch KOs the Gliscor, and that's a good game. We see one of the worst case scenario leads in the next match, Hypno into Morpeko. This is a Pokemon that I am ABA weak to. I save switch into my only answer, which is the Drapion, and they respond with Annihilate. Now, me switching to my own answer is a bluff that I have a second Morpeko counter in the back. This is to make my opponent think switch advantage is important and commit a shield in the mid game, because I am completely core broken by Morpeko. But if I can get the energy advantage and a shield advantage, then suddenly I can actually put in some work here. Hypno is going to get the confusion farm down. I now have a small energy advantage, but I'm going to look to switch out. Opponent sends in Drifblim, and I think Greninja can sweep. Opponent was a little slow on the switch in there. Morpeko is going to make an Aura Wheel, but I'm going to get to commit the shield and build up to the back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Hydro Cannon will easily KO the Glassy Morpeko. At this point, my opponent's only hope is to try and call a bait, which they do, but there is just never any reason to bait. Now, Greninja can sweep this endgame, but I really want Hypno to take the win, so I actually don't click my move there. Instead, I am just going to send in the Hypno. By not clicking the move, I will get the 0-turn switch out. In comes Hypno, making it to a Thunder Punch. So we see basically the worst possible lead we can see, but by making a play for energy and shield advantage, we're still able to get the win. Great lead in the next match, Hypno into Annihilate. Opponent is going to save switch into Dugong, and Dugong, I have Thunder Punch for this, and Thunder Punch will inflict some serious damage, so Dugong is forced to give up an early shield. Dugong is going to fire off energy. I know I can tank whatever they throw, so I will no shield and then look to bring in Greninja. They are 3 off a move, I'm 3 off a move as well, but Greninja wins the CMP tie, getting to land a Night Slash and dealing some pretty solid damage. After these charge moves are thrown, my opponent's switch timer should be up, so they will be able to bring in the Annihilate. I build up to the Hydro, but I'm going for a Night Slash here in the hope that by Night Slashing, I can get to a second move. It's going to be close, though. The Night Slash is going to be shielded. Greninja tanks it on 1 HP. The pretty solid IV Greninja coming in clutch, making the Hydro Cannon massive damage to that Annihilate. I bring in the Hypno. Honestly, I might survive this Rage Fist, but I didn't want to risk it, so I decided just to commit the shield to the Hypno, as Hypno does have a little bit of residual energy. Opponent is going to bring back in the Dugong. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy with the Hypno. I didn't want to risk a potential farm down there. I was worried that they wouldn't get KO'd by the next confusion, so I'll just KO them this way, and I intentionally don't throw a confusion there just to anticipate needing to switch out, and that actually proves to be very valuable, as in the back is the Dunsparce. Now Dunsparce, I have no shields. They can land a Drill Run, but Drill Run does not KO. I will be able to survive this and make it to the crunch. That is incredibly clutch, and all because I waited to see what was brought in, and when I saw the normal typing, I switched out instantly instead of throwing the confusion and getting too far behind in terms of energy. We move to the next match, leading the Shadow Hypno into Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is choosing to stay in, and that's very fine for me. I'm going to fire off a Thunder Punch, and my opponent will commit the shield and look to fire off their energy. I will let this go and then look to switch out of this matchup. The Swift is going to connect. In comes the Drapion. Opponent is going to respond with Gastrodon, and this is not great for me. This is probably going to be Drifblim in the back, which is very good for my backline, but the biggest issue that I'm going to encounter is the fact that there's still a Wigglytuff and I have Greninja, so I actually decide to commit the shield. I'm hoping my opponent shields back here, because I need shields down if I'm getting rid of that Wigglytuff, and they actually do give up the final shield. That's very nice. In comes Greninja. I did get a Crunch debuff, so my Water Shurikens will be doing more damage. This is going to be a very tough game to play out of, though. I always need to have a move loaded. Opponent makes a Body Slam, and here I'm going to wait the turn, anticipating a switch out. They actually don't go for the switch out. There's the switch out, and I'm able to fire off the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to pick up the KO. Down goes Wigglytuff, and the important thing is the charm didn't land. In comes the Gastrodon. I get the farm down with the Hypno, and it is Drifblim in the back. Hypno has the Thunder Punch ready to go. That does significant damage, and I have a ton of energy on Greninja. That feels like a game that I never should have won, but by the narrowest of margins, we do emerge victorious. Shadow Hypno versus Cresselia. I'm going to throw one Confusion and then safe switch out of here. This does give my opponent a free Moonblast into the Drapion because I am now behind on energy, but I'm very okay taking that. Their decision to stay in here very much surprises me. I want to land some damage on this Cresselia, so I go for the Crunch. That's going to connect. I make it to Crunch number 2 on the CMP tie, denying their energy unless they give up the first shield of the match. They're just going to let that go, fully sacrificing it. In comes Typhlosion looking for the farm down, but the 4 pacing on Aqua Tail, so spammy, able to make it to the move and force the shield before the Incinerate damage registers. In comes Greninja. These Water Shurikens do add up quite substantially. They're going to go for the Thunder Punch. Typhlosion, another Pokemon that has extra damage in this new season. I'm going to fire off the Night Slash. Night Slash is going to be shielded by Typhlosion. Typhlosion firing off another move, and that is going to grab the final shield from the Greninja. Opponent is going to switch out into Feraligatr, and Feraligatr will immediately be met with Night Slash. Now, we should make the second Night Slash on the CMP tie. I'm not quite sure it KOs, so I should have a guaranteed win condition just by sending in the Hypno. Hypno is going to force the opponent's energy. I can't quite get the Thunder Punch, but I'm going to force their hand. They have to throw their energy, and now I just have a pretty easy double up for the Greninja because they're completely dry, so I can double up on Night Slashes, and this game will be over. I will end up throwing on Alignment here at the end because I know that the Night Slash will KO, so we do get the massive ball of fire as Incinerate goes through, but it's not going to matter because Night Slash will KO the shieldless Typhlosion. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Hypno versus a Shadow Bibarel. Okay, the opponent running a very cool pick. Shadow Bibarel actually does some pretty absurd damage. I'm on a no-shield. Look at how much damage this does. That's a Surf. That's not its hard-hitting move. They're one off, so it forces me to throw on Alignment. They now have a decent amount of residual energy, so that is going to pressure them into giving up a shield. I'm more than happy to shield back, and then I'm going to look to switch out into the Drapion, because I know that I can make it to an Aqua Tail before my opponent makes it to a move, and either knock them out and make them lose all their energy, or force the final shield. Now this is a little bit tricky. I don't really want to leave my Greninja without shields, but Shadow Hyper Fang does so much damage. In comes Clodsire. I make the double Aqua Tail, but the Poison Sting that snuck through will actually knock out the Drapion, which means I only get one of those moves. I'm going to send in the Hypno. Opponent is going to fire off their energy. I'm just going to let this through. Opponent goes for an Earthquake for some reason. They definitely should have gone for their bait move there. I send in Greninja, and I don't know what they had in back, but clearly it did not want to see a 1-0 shield Greninja as they resign the match. We move to the next match. Holy spice from the opponent. I was expecting Shadow Claw, and Shadow Claw for Alligator Hypno can still win the zeros, but it's an Ice Fang for Alligator. I'm still going to follow the same game plan. Play zeros, and if they shield, switch into Drapion, but they actually fully sacrifice it. In comes Goodra. I immediately counter switch into the Shadow Drapion, hoping that my opponent decides to stay in. I couldn't afford to give the Goodra farm. Crunch is shielded, and I get a very clutch defense drop. Opponent is going to be spamming out these Aqua Tails, very nicely timed by my opponent, and I am going to look to farm up quite a bit and go for an Aqua Tail bait. Honestly, I don't think I can make an Aqua Tail plus a Crunch, so firing off the Aqua Tail means that I can make a second move. This forces their energy, and I'm very okay with just letting this go and trusting in Greninja to sweep. As Greninja with energy is a very, very scary Pokemon. I am going to respect the potential Thunder Punch. It is going to be an Aqua Tail bait from the opponent. In the back is Shadow Typhlosion. Oh no. And this is just a Greninja masterclass. Hydro Cannon KOs. In comes the Goodra. Goodra's getting knocked out by a Night Slash. So that's unfortunate for my opponent. Shadow Typhlosion, a very cool mon. But in giving up both shields, it just didn't have any play. We see a terrible lead in the next match, leading Shadow Hypno into Malamar. And this is where Shadow Hypno really does not like to see these dark types, so I do have two Pokemon that can do pretty solidly into dark types in the back. Opponent is going to Superpower and then go Clodsire. Clodsire going to get hit with back-to-back Aqua Tails. I'm going to farm up quite a bit and play to this CMP tie here, so that way the opponent doesn't get a lot of overfarm. So the Aqua Tail is going to land, and I'm more than happy just to let this go. I feel like, realistically, I have done my job as the Drapion, and now I can just go for a full farm down and exit with a nice amount of energy. In comes the Malamar, there's a quick switch to the Greninja, and I'm going to fire off the Hydro Cannon right away. If they superpowered instantly, this will be a CMP tie, and it is. And since they superpowered instantly, what I should have done actually was not throw the move and go for the extra in the back. It's Steelix, but Steelix is now on Thunderfang, and this unfortunately is just going to be a loss. If I had potentially gotten that Water Shuriken for free, then I could have made a Hydro Cannon here and maybe done something, but unfortunately it's just not to be. The switch timer's up, but this is not a range where Ice Punch would KO. This is a rare game where I would actually need Fire Punch, and they're running Crunch as well. I can get them as low as I possibly can here with the Ice Punch, but look at this. It does not KO, just not enough. I realistically didn't have any problems with Ice Punch and Thunder Punch throughout these battles, except for this battle. Fire Punch would have been nice here, as I could have preserved a little bit of extra health, and Greninja's just much too low. I can't get a move, so I am just going to let this go. So Malamar with Thunderfang Steelix in the back, a difficult team comp to overcome. We see a good lead in the next match, Hypno into Superior, but they save switch into Drapion, and I immediately make a game-losing misplay. I meant to send in my own Greninja. The play pattern would have been to bring in my own Greninja, basically just throw it away, because I know my opponent has a Superior, so even if I lose switch advantage, that's fine, and then just go for farm on my Drapion. But instead, I accidentally click on my own Drapion, guaranteeing that I'm either going to have to go down shields to keep switch, or just lose switch advantage altogether, either of which is a complete death sentence. So by this misswap, I've basically already thrown the game from the start. I should have just sent in Greninja, played out the zeros. If they were able to win switch, that would have been fine, as I could have farmed with Drapion, because both Drapion and Hypno can deal with Superior, but Greninja absolutely cannot. And now I'm in an awkward position where I have a Greninja in the back and it has no shields to work with. Opponent is going to be hit with the Crunch. Crunch is going to land. That does some pretty solid damage. In the back is Morpeko, and this is just a loss. I was able to beat a Morpeko that was on the lead before because I was able to get an energy advantage, shield advantage, but now I'm at an energy deficit and a shield deficit, so I'm just going to stay in and accept my fate, as Morpeko is going to absolutely sweep me. And this is a good example of how a team composition where in theory I should win if I played well, if I make a mistake, suddenly the team can fall apart. And hopping into the final match, look at this absolute mad lad. That is an XL Frigabax with Ice Fang. I did have to save this battle for last because this opponent, what an absolute Spice Lord. Unbelievable stuff. I'm going to fire off the Ice Punch. This would hit for neutral. They're going to give up a shield. Now I can send in Drapion. Drapion farming up. This should only be a Dragon Claw from the Frigabax, not an Icy Wind. So I am going to let that through. Opponent is now going to bring in their own Drapion. And I'm at the back-to-back Aqua Tails. Firing off Aqua Tail number 1. They're the regular Drapion. So 2 Aqua Tails don't threaten the regular nearly as much as they would the Shadow. I win the cap tie, which is very, very nice for me. And I'm more than happy just to let this go. My opponent is now going to get a nice farm down there, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I can bring in Greninja. If I correctly shield the Crunch, they're only going to make an Aqua Tail here, so I am going to shield the first, but they bait with the Aqua Tail. Now they can make a Crunch. I will deny that energy, however, by going for the Night Slash. They're pretty close to 1 HP, so I don't think they can shield, because even a shielded move does exactly 1 hit point of damage. So I'm able to pick up the knockout. In the back is Shadow Magneton. And unfortunately, I mean, normally this would be a bad matchup for Greninja, but I'm up energy, so I can just win the game. I wait the turn, I don't let them get the catch, and now I get the double up of a Night Slash plus a Hydro Cannon, so this game is over. Greninja up energy as we get the boost. Oh no. I was going to say Greninja up energy can threaten just about everything. It can threaten everything in the game if it has a boost. Oh my goodness. And we're able to take the win. And now some final thoughts with Shadow Hypno and this team as a whole. First off, I do think that Shadow Hypno, you can definitely feel an improvement. Having the punches do real damage is a definite plus, and I think it takes Hypno from relative obscurity to a viable spice or anti-meta pick. However, the one thing that I will say that still continues to haunt Hypno is the pacing. Compared to when Hypno was meta previously, when pacing was just a lot slower overall, this is a very fast-paced meta. You have Morpeko that's firing off Aura Wheels every 10 turns that begins at a Frenzy Plant clone and has a guaranteed attack boost. So being a Pokemon that is 16 turns to the first move, Hypno does end up getting outpaced quite a bit, and I think that's the thing that holds it back from being truly meta. It's just the fact that his pacing is still a bit slow. However, honestly, who I think was the true MVP of this team was Greninja. So if you take anything away from this, it's that Hypno, I mean, it's solid, it's improved, but Greninja was feasting. Oh my goodness. I felt like there were a lot of games where I kind of just neutrally played out the lead, tried to generate some kind of advantage, and then Greninja was just absolutely shredding backlines. This thing has devastatingly fast pacing. It's very frail, but even in its bad matchups, as long as it has shields to hide behind, I think basically the sky's the limit for Greninja. This thing is a beast. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.